Hi, and welcome to the SideQuesters podcast. My name is Justin. I am your co-host, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan McNeil. And we are here to talk about video games. First up on the list, the Anthem demo. Big deal. It was kind of a big deal. A lot of people played it. I guess too many people played it because the servers crashed and made it really difficult to play. Did you get a chance to play this, Ryan?
Yeah, I went back in to try out the other javelins that were out there. In the VIP demo, I only got to use the Ranger. So I opened up the Interceptor, the Colossus, and what's the third one called? The Stormbringer or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Isn't it supposed to be like the mage of the group or the wizard?
Yeah, pretty much. Got lightning coming out of your fingers and everything like that.
So did you have a favorite class?
I preferred the Interceptor myself.
Yeah, that's the one that like makes you feel like you're Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, straight up is like super fast and like agile.
It's pretty much the ninja of all of the suits. And yeah, I just like how fast it feels. I've always been a guy who likes using fast characters in kind of combat situations. The Stormbringer is also really fun to play with. I didn't get a lot of time with it, the demo, just because I ran into a lot of issues. But I kind of viewed the demo as a beta for like maybe stress testing their networks, so I'd kind of like rather them get that out of their system now than just be bombarded by it all on release date. And maybe that's kind of why they're doing a staggered release as well. You know, they're doing this like pre-release and then pre-release, and then now it comes out on this date, and if you bought this, it comes out on this day. So gosh, that spreadsheet that they released is the most confusing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, you need to evaluate your release schedule when you need an entire Excel sheet to figure it out.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why it should be that confusing.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Anthem. I'm seeing a lot of correlations between Destiny, but I think that's natural just because they're both futuristic kind of like games as service games. So I think there's definitely direct correlation, and some people are like, is this a Destiny killer? I don't know if it's supposed to be a Destiny killer. I think it's just supposed to exist alongside a game like Destiny. So I think it'll draw a lot of the same crowd, though, a lot of the same players.
Well, yeah, it draws some of those comparisons because of the fact that their mission structure is somewhat similar to what Destiny's is, and it has those different classes, but the fact that in Anthem the classes are tied to the suits and you can just pop into any of those suits, whereas with Destiny you're kind of locked in a class.
So it's more flexible, you'd say.
Yeah.
Lets players explore different ways to approach the game without having to restart from like level 1.
It lets you strategize before you go into missions. So if you're gonna go up against like a hardcore enemy, you might want to pick the Colossus since it's the tank of the group. However, I did not like playing the Colossus because it kind of felt like it was weaker than it should have been, but I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, maybe just because it was slower.
It just kind of. I thought that I would be able to take more hits and everything than what I'd be able to. Even with it has like this different thing from the suits where it doesn't have shields, but it has like a physical shield that you have to use to put up to block the to keep yourself from getting shot and everything. But it doesn't feel like you're all that strong.
So you basically want them to make their tanky character more tanky.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think maybe the demo was kind of like a little bit of a feeler for how thousands of different gamers, probably tens of thousands, would use different classes, and they probably got a lot of data from that. Yeah. So they might be making adjustments to the javelins and different things like that. So
they did say that they were going to buff the Colossus and debuff the Storm, I believe.
The Storm was it the Stormbringer?
Yeah.
Yeah, like one thing I saw was like people being the Stormbringer and kind of just floating above the battle and just basically being invincible almost.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. They describe it as being like a glass cannon, but like your shields are like stronger when you're hovering and when you're in that javelin, and your shields are just as strong as like everybody else's. So you're not really a glass cannon. You're like a full-on cannon.
Well, another game we can talk about is Life is Strange 2. They just came out with episode 2 not too long ago. I personally haven't played this, but I did play the first one, and you said you're playing the second one right now?
Yes, I am. I just got into playing the second episode of the second game. I'm only about, I'd say, probably 20 minutes in. But it looks like it's going to be better than what the first episode was.
And does it follow kind of the same formula? Each episode is about, I'd say, anywhere between 2 and 4 hours, however you choose to play.
Yeah, that will be about the time length of this episode as well.
And what's your impressions on 2? Do you see it being a better story than 1 so far, or just a different story?
I don't think they can be compared because they are different stories. You just have to take both of them for what they are.
Are there any callbacks to the first one? I know they're kind of 2 entirely separate stories, kind of set in the same universe, so kind of like an anthology almost. Are there any callbacks to the first one? Do they reference Max at all or anything like that?
There is one callback that I have run into, and it kind of depends on what your decision was in the first game. So gotcha. It's Arcadia Bay that the setting was placed in the first Life is Strange, and you come across that in Life is Strange 2, that same town, and depending on what you chose for the ending of Life is Strange 1, you'll see the result of that on the town.
Interesting. So just depending on how your final choices played out in the first game, you kind of get a little shout out in the second game.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of cool. And yeah, and then Psychonauts Rhombus of Ruin, is that how you pronounce that?
Of Ruin?
Of Ruin? So that's what you're playing right now.
So I noticed that this game was on sale for like $4, so I decided to pick it up. I never played any of the Psychonauts games, but I was just kind of looking for something to use my PSVR on. And so I started trying this game, and it's pretty much like a small little kind of like puzzle room kind of experience where you have to figure out what sequence of events will unlock other events that will help you get to the next stage of the level, basically.
So basically an escape room or puzzle room type situation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gotcha. And are you getting a lot of use out of your PSVR, you would say? I mean, have you been playing it a whole lot lately? Yeah, I feel like it had this like huge like launch, and people were so pumped about VR, and it lasted. It had a good like year and a half run, and then it just kind of tapered off. I wouldn't say it died. I feel like people got less excited about it. It seemed like started seeing a lot less VR enabled games.
I would say that it may appear like that, but VR is as hot as it's ever been right now. It's not quite to the levels of where people expected it to be when VR first came out, but people are like really into it. There's been a ton of PSVR headsets sold. I'm getting a lot of use out of my PSVR. I played games like Astrobot VR. Let's see.
I think one of the most interesting ones I saw was Moss, and they kind of used was this mouse that had these huge ears who was actually deaf, and kind of used that mechanic to him and in the VR in a unique way. I never got a chance to play it because I don't own a PSVR or VR headset, but it always just seemed really intriguing to me that they were kind of including this what many people would call a disability into their gameplay mechanics. So I thought that was really neat.
I played Moss. I really like it. It's right behind Astrobot for me.
As far as top PSVR games go?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't remember that being part of the game though. Quill, which is the mouse's name, being deaf. But
I thought wasn't it? Maybe I'm getting two games mixed up. I thought it was Moss that where the mouse was deaf.
No, she's not deaf. I don't believe so. From what I remember, but then again, I haven't played it since back in March.
Hang on, I'm reading the wiki. So the mouse's name is Quill. Navigating environments, battling enemies. The player also can manipulate the environment every day with Quill. Quill communicates with the player through the use of sign language for puzzle hints and emotional responses.
Yeah.
So sign language and deaf. So that's I think that's where I got it from. So it's implied that he's deaf, but never really said that he is. But using sign language to communicate with the players kind of gives that perception.
Yeah, but yeah. So basically, it's a really fun and cute experience. The makers of Moss are planning on releasing a second chapter to that game because the game was only about like 5 or 6 hours, I believe,
which is pretty long for a VR game. I feel.
Yeah. Going. Gosh, I forgot what I was about to say. Go ahead.
Oh, well, so I feel like a lot of VR titles are usually just kind of, I wouldn't say full-on games. They're more experiences. So take like Beat Saber. I'm not discrediting Beat Saber as a game, but it's kind of like an experience. You get in there, you play the game, you go to the beat, and then you could knock it out. You could do 10 minutes or 20 minutes, But Moss was like an actual story. It had a beginning, middle, and end. And I feel like 6 hours is a pretty long time for a VR title because you don't see a lot of that lately.
So this is how Sony has implemented its strategy for PSVR. Going into the initial releases for the PSVR, Sony planned on having shorter experiences and having more experience than games, but they planned on as the headset and developers had more time to develop for the headset, that they'd start pushing developers to create actual games and longer games. And we've started getting into that territory now where they are putting out regular length full title games like Moss and Astrobot and
I feel like that could be
Firewall.
That takes a lot though, because I mean, I don't know if a lot of our listeners or anybody has or been inside a VR headset. Spending 6 hours in one of those things is kind of intense. Like after about 20 or 30 minutes, it's like I feel like I need a break, and I play games all the time. So it's just kind of it's just the nature of what you're doing. You're putting something on your head and around your eyes, and you're drowning out all your senses from the real world and being in this world with headphones and then the VR headset and then with the controllers. So just a long experience in that. Just it takes a lot. So I think now that developers and hardware companies are getting more in tune of the things VR needs to make it more palatable, more comfortable, that we'll see more and more longer experience, especially when VR becomes more accessible.
Yeah, and that's where developers are going with the next-gen headsets, as we will actually talk about later in the show, I guess.
Yeah. One more piece of news, though. Apex Legends was announced and came out in literally the same day. So Apex Legends is by Respawn Entertainment, and it's their take on the whole Battle Royale craze all these young whippersnappers seem to be caught up in. I got a chance to play it before the podcast, and
yeah, what'd you think?
It feels like Titanfall Battle Royale without the Titans and the free running. So I've never been a big fan of Battle Royale modes, but the kind of I guess you can do this in most other ones too, but it's not such a core mechanic to the gameplay. I think is that in Apex Legends you're composed of 3-man teams, and some of the other battle royales it's almost kind of like a King of the Hill type situations, which I think Apex Legends does have as well. But the default mode that they're encouraging people to play is these 3-man groups.
So it's like a squad-based battle royale.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they still have the other like traditional battle royale in there, but I think the game more is centered around this group effort, and it's cool. I'm not a big fan of battle royale. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just the one and done thing, and then you got to find a new game once you die, and maybe that's enticing to a lot of people. It kind of puts more pressure on players to perform a little bit better rather than just be reckless like you are if you were playing something like Battlefield where you can just respawn right away. I don't know. I'm gonna give it more of a chance. Put in a few hours into it and give it a couple days and see if this is one battle royale game that can kind of get me hooked.
Yeah, it does sound like people are attaching to it, because they did announce that about like 1.2 million people.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, they had like the first 8 hours, 1.2 million sign-ins. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes. That is interesting.
Yeah, and so yeah, if you haven't got a chance to check out Apex Legends, it's free to download on PC, Xbox, and PS4. I don't think it's cross-play yet, but I say yet because I think something like this would benefit greatly from cross-play, and I think the developers and the publishers and the hardware companies all know that. So, speaking of cross-play, Microsoft is actually they just came out saying they're planning to make Xbox Live compatible for cross-play with Nintendo Switch and your cell phone, so iOS and Android. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that was a crazy announcement. That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it kind of timed itself around the same time as Apex Legends. I don't know if you noticed that. I don't know if there's anything to do with that, but yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, ever since Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network came online, like gamers have been asking for this, and it's always never been an issue of technology or hardware. It's usually been an issue with the companies themselves opening up their systems to competitor systems. So it's really cool to see Microsoft doing this, but a part of me thinks that maybe Microsoft is being so open to this is because they're kind of falling behind in the space. You know, PS4 has more market share, Sony has more exclusives. They're kind of having to like offer more to gamers to entice them to stay with Xbox, or at least play first on Xbox.
Well, the whole plan that Microsoft is trying to pull here, it seems like, is just to get their service onto as many devices as possible, so that they can have access to all of those users on all those different devices. And to me, we don't know quite yet everything that's entailed in this whole bringing the service to Switch and mobile. I believe that they said that they're going to elaborate on that later in a GDC conference. But I imagine it would be like something like you'd be able to there would be an app on the Switch or something like that, and you'd be able to like see your profile and stuff like that. But
yeah, so I mean that's great news for gamers. I hope this isn't one of those situations where like one company's trying to get ahead of the other, and so they're appearing to be open. I feel like Sony did this like back. Remember when the Xbox One first got announced, and like they were like, it's an entertainment system. You can watch TV and sports and all these things on it, and people are like, we just want to play video games.
Yeah.
And Sony came out of left field and was like, yo, we're cheaper, we're better, we have more exclusives. Like, you don't need all this. You know, your TV's for your TV, and Sony was kind of like the underdog there for a while, and now that the roles are switched, Sony's kind of being restrictive with them pushing so hard, or pushing back against so hard, on the whole Fortnite debacle, where Xbox Live and Switch users could play together, but Sony wasn't opening, Sony wasn't opening their Xbox users and PC players, but Sony wasn't opening that platform. They didn't want PS4 players playing with Xbox players, and I think they finally caved to that, though. I think I remember reading that Sony finally gave in to that peer pressure, but that's only because Fortnite's literally the biggest freaking video game in the last 5 years as far as the number of money coming in and going out. So
yeah, it will be interesting to see what Microsoft has in store for the future. I feel like because of the fact that they're being so much more experimental with their approach to the future, that they're going to take some big risks that may pay off.
You know what I think they're really doing here is this is going to kind of tie into their whole streaming service in some way. So when they say mobile, like, I think Microsoft's end game with the whole Xbox brand is to make those games available on any screen that you're at. So you can pull up your phone and connect a Xbox controller to it, and then play your game, and then put it down, and then when you get it home, you can pick up right where you left off. I think they're trying to build that kind of convenience and system and network out. And
trying to beat Google to that streaming.
Yeah, well, a lot of companies have been doing that for a while. It's never quite caught on, obviously because of a lot of limitations and different variables. I'm not sure streaming will ever be the main source of entertainment for people. Like, I think you being able to digitally download your games is still going to be like the go-to for a while. I think, at least in America, with our internet infrastructure, if you live outside a major city, I just don't think people's internet is reliable enough for that. And there's quite a few people that live outside major hubs, so
yeah,
I think we're a long way from that. But I think retail-wise, we may see the end of actual physical media, at least maybe in some entertainment mediums. I'm not sure if that's going to include video games or not, but so I feel eventually that's going to go away, and the only way you're going to be able to get games in the future is to download them.
Yeah, that could very well maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So next up on my list, Machinima. So to touch base on our episode from last week, Machinima got bought. You know, they got all their videos wiped off the face of the internet. A lot of people were hurt. A lot of people were upset. Nobody knew what was kind of happening to the brand. And now the MCN has been shut down officially, and all the staff has been laid off. So kind of went from bad to worse for those people. So
yeah, it's always a shame to see something like that go down.
I mean,
it's never easy.
No, it's never easy, people losing their jobs, but a lot of people kind of after YouTube put systems in place for, you know, I would say at least streamline the process for individual content creators to help monetize themselves and start making money off of YouTube. The point of MCNs kind of almost disappeared. Like, they were kind of pointless. So I feel that this was kind of just like the way of the natural evolution of the industry and the online content creation space. So, because there's no such thing as many MCNs now. Like, these multi-channel networks just aren't a thing anymore since YouTube.
I can't even really think of any that still exist.
No, but they had a good following. They had a big brand. They had a lot of followers on YouTube, and somebody thought that was some worth and bought them out. But unfortunately,
I
81
think
people
it was
lost their jobs.
Full Screen Media.
Full Screen Media, which is in turn owned by Otter Media, which is in turn owned by Time Warner.
Jeez.
Right? Like, I don't. It's like this Inception level of like ownership of which bigger corporation owns over the other smaller corporations. I don't know. It's making somebody rich. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Next up on news, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, kind of out of left field. We got an official statement from EA saying that we're going to see this game in the fall, which is pretty cool. Because a lot of people were like, yo, if Respawn just released Apex Legends, like, who the hell's working on the Star Wars game? And, you know, Respawn came out and said, you know, there's this thing called multiple teams at a game design company. And so one team was working on Apex Legends and is still working on Apex Legends, probably for the foreseeable future for ongoing content and seasons. But they have an entire other team that's been working on Star Wars, and we're going to see this game in the fall. I think we're going to see a lot more of it at E3 in some capacity. Maybe at EA's presser or something similar. So I'm excited for it because it's the only real AAA Star Wars game we're getting now that we know of, really, since, you know, EA or Disney, or I don't know who decides to cancel games, but
hopefully this one won't be canceled.
Yeah, we hope. I mean, so like, for those uninformed, like, Star Wars was being the team behind Dead Space, Visceral Games, was working on a, like, apparently really badass story-driven Star Wars game, and then EA's like, nah, we're gonna cut that, and then but like, we're gonna still keep the game though. We're just gonna cut that studio, you know, nicked, and then we're gonna move it over to EA Vancouver. And then, so the EA Vancouver team took it over, and then next thing we know,
turned it into something completely unrecognizable.
Yeah, it was just, and now it was more of an open world game and not so story driven and linear. And then they found out that you know, changing the whole game's backbone and design basis is kind of fucked up the game. So they were like, we don't need this anymore. So that got canceled. And so the only two big franchises we have right now are Battlefront, which I'm sure there'll be another one, and this Fallen Order, and I think it couldn't come from a better developer. I think there's a lot of good talent at Respawn. So, if I remember reading correctly, the game director for God of War 3 is leading this team at Respawn.
Yeah, and EA is kind of in a situation where they need to have something successful, because of the last few games that they've had have kind of not reached expectations, and because of which they're I can't remember this. I think it was this last financial year they were actually down from last year because
they did that big push with Battlefield, and to be honest, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't have any friends playing it.
It did not sell near as well as other Battlefield games. It sold well for just a game in general, but for a Battlefield game, it did not do well.
Yeah, you're talking about a long established franchise that should have a pretty big following. I just think they kind of pulled themselves in too many directions. I mean, Battlefield is pretty much the same at its core, not the same game exactly, so don't twist my words. But like at its core, it's this Battlefront is the same thing as Battlefield. Pretty much, like you go from one game to the other, you're just kind of putting a different skin on things and calling it a different game at that point. So I feel like when they saturated people with Battlefront and then they released Battlefield, you're just kind of like, I don't know.
To me, the failure of Battlefront was more because of the fact that the game was broken due to the ridiculous need for grinding, which was caused by the fact that they put in a ton of microtransactions.
Right. And I've actually heard it's decent now. I got a friend that still plays it regularly, and he says it's definitely not the same game they released.
Yeah, they had to backtrack big time after Disney kind of called them out, which actually surprises me that Disney is still on good, or EA is still on good footing with Disney after all that's happened.
Well, they just released an article today that said Disney's like, you know what, we're pretty shit at making games, so EA, you're doing a good job because we're worse at it. So that was pretty much it in a nutshell. So I think I don't know why the other Star Wars games got canceled, but now that Disney says, you know, we're not really in the business of making games, or in the business of owning companies that make games, so I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of VR earlier, the next Rift headset kind of some news came out about that, and some people think it might be called the Rift S, and it differs in the original Rift in that it'll probably have a higher resolution screen, which is cool, and that it'll get rid of the need for room trackers, so it'll actually be able to position yourself in 3D space just on the headset alone, because there's supposed to be cameras installed on the headset that kind of like basically 3D scan your room and can position you in 3D space without the need of like towers or these like infrared lights or like these stations that go in the corners of your room. I think that's good for VR. I think that's good for the entry of VR, the ease of setup. Because I remember when the Oculus came out, it was just a pain in the ass to set up. There's like 5 wires. Don't even get me started on the PSVR. It has a whole nother little mini PlayStation that sits next to it. Like I think the barrier of entry will be a lot less stressful for people, and then especially if they make it wireless. Ooh, that's going to be a big deal.
So, I've been following the Oculus for a while now, and I don't believe... Let me put this out first. I don't believe that this will be wireless. If anything, it will have a wireless adapter similar to what the HTC Vive does. But what I was going to say is I'm kind of surprised that they're making this Rift S, because of the fact that only about 4 months ago, Oculus's co-founder and former CEO, I think you pronounce his name Brandon Iribe, left Facebook and Oculus because of the fact that Facebook was moving away from a tethered headset. And from the sounds of this, it sounds like it's going to be a tethered headset, unlike the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Go.
Yeah, well, I remember that whole debacle with the CEO leaving, and then Facebook straight up came out and said, "Yo, we're still designing a mainstream headset. There will be another Rift. You guys can count on that," because they released they've released what, 2 versions? The Oculus Go and then the Oculus. There's one more, isn't there?
Yeah. Gosh, what was it called?
There's the Go, and then the. I don't know. It was supposed to be a little bit more of a standalone experience, whereas the Go needed your mobile phone, I think. And then with the Oculus, the name we can't think of, I think you didn't need your phone. Like, it was supposed to be a standalone thing, almost like its own console.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the one Oculus Go is.
Okay, so what was the other one I'm thinking of?
Let me look it up real quick, see if I can find it.
So there's the Oculus Go.
I think what you're thinking of is the Oculus Santa Cruz, which is what they codenamed the Quest.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, Oculus Quest. That's what it was. I couldn't think of it. But yeah, more VR the better, as they say. You got all kinds of companies making VR, AR headsets now, and I think that's just good for the industry and good for the competition.
Yeah, and I think the more that both Facebook and Sony push VR, the better for all of us.
Right. And next in news, EA trademarked Jade Empire, or I think it was a re-trademarking, or I don't know the direct term for that, but they basically made sure their trademark of Jade Empire didn't lapse. So they have to refile it, which means that they could be doing something with that franchise, or not franchise. Did they ever make a Jade Empire 2?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So they might be doing something with the brand, I guess.
Hopefully, I'm so hoping that this means that they're going to make a sequel or a remaster.
They will, but it'll be on your phone.
Oh God. That would be the worst. But yeah, man, I love Jade Empire.
That's what they did with Alien. Did you see that? They hyped up the next Alien game, and it was a mobile game called Alien Blackout. You know what? That game was supposed to be released at the Video Game Awards, or like not released, but like revealed. And for some odd reason, Jeff Keighley just didn't do it. I think we know why now, because it was a mobile game, and people would have been pissed after the Diablo fiasco.
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, he was supposed to, because he teased it on Twitter and stuff, and then it never happened. And then people asked him about it, and he was like, well, in production, things change last minute, and so we have to shift and make the show go on, which is totally true. But at the same time, I bet when it was found out that it was a mobile game, and this is right after the whole Diablo stuff, he was just like, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't want to self-sabotage with the Video Game Awards with that release.
Just to put it out there, the whole Diablo thing was more bad timing than anything.
Right, and
the fact that they were saving that as their big reveal is.
I totally agree. I totally agree, because if you look at the way Bethesda did it, they announced Blades, which was a mobile game, and then like right after they're like, "But check out Fallout 76." So,
yeah,
I feel like if they, you know what they could have done? They could have had this big presentation on Diablo Mobile. Was it Diablo Immortal or Immortals? And like, just showed it, and then you could just flashed a big teaser at the end of the show saying Diablo like 4, you know, coming up, or whatever the next Diablo is. I think it's Diablo 3 or 4. I don't know what Diablo they're on. I think I would know that. So yeah, it would be a Diablo 4. You could have just thrown a teaser up, and people would have just like cheered and hollered and would have been happy.
Yeah, they just botched that whole thing.
And then their nervous developers that are on stage, like, you guys don't have phones? Like, come on! They're like, dude, you're not making your situation better right now.
Yeah, but I can't think of. I can't imagine myself in that position though, like trying to calm.
He probably was just trying to de-escalate the situation. To be honest. But yeah, and now we're kind of gonna move to a Reddit thread that I read online, and I thought it'd be kind of good for us to just talk about games that people have played for the first time, and that people get to play for the first time, and how you're kind of jealous of that. So, like, how much you would give to go back and experience a game again for the first time. And there's kind of quite a few, and probably more than I can remember. But one that really stands out to me is Uncharted 2. God, I remember the first time playing that game, I was like, I can't believe this is a video game. Like, I feel like Naughty Dog was doing things in that space that just hadn't been done before, as far as like this action-adventure game and these huge set pieces. Like, I will never get over that level where you have to like escape the sinking like cruise liner ship thing, and then you have the water rushing down at you in the hallways, and then it was just a great experience. And like,
wait, but wasn't that Uncharted 3?
I'm pretty sure that was 2, right? Am I getting my Uncharted mixed up?
Because the Uncharted 2 was like the big train.
Right, the train was in 2, but I thought the boat was too. Now you're gonna make me Google this and figure it out.
Sorry.
Uncharted boat.
Yeah, I just realized
level.
I'm pretty sure that's 3.
You know, you're probably right, and I'm probably wrong. I'm just talking out my ass right now. Oh god, this is so loud. You know what? I think it is 3. Okay, so Uncharted 2 and 3. We'll just redact that. Just edit this out. Actually, I'm not, because I'm lazy, but Uncharted 2 and 3. Okay, and 2 we'll go with the train, the whole train chase. And then 3 we'll go with the boat scene. So,
I mean, Uncharted 2 for me is actually my favorite game of all time. There's just so many good memories that game brings up. And I remember, like, right from the get-go, waking up in a train that's just dangling from a cliff. And that's how you start the game. Like, that blew my mind.
And it was awesome because it was just kind of like a clever way of like teaching people the climbing mechanics too. Like, it's just so well thought out.
Yeah. And it was like the first movie type of, or it was like the first game that had a narrative that was so good that people would just watch other people play it like they were watching a movie.
Yeah, but that's basically what it is. It's like you're playing a movie. It's just an amazing sequence of events. Did you ever play the newest one that came out? I think it was this last year or the year before. This last year.
2017.
Okay, yeah, so 2017.
Lost Legacy?
Lost Legacy, yeah. The one with Chloe and, God, I can't remember her name for the life
Nadine.
of me. Nadine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good one, too. Like, I thought it was just going to be, like, some, like, little handoff side game they were doing because, you know, they felt like they needed to put out another Uncharted. But, no, it was legit another full Uncharted experience.
Yeah, well, I think originally it was supposed to be just kind of like a DLC, but then they decided to add on more aspects to the story, and it turned into like a full-fledged spin-off.
Yeah, their DLC actually turned into a full game.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like how Far Cry, the new Far Cry that's coming out is kind of a addition to Far Cry 5.
Yeah, because it's kind of like DLC, but not DLC, but it's so big it's its own game. Yeah. So, speaking of that game, I don't think I'll be picking it up. I think I got too many other games to play. But if you pick it up, you'll have to let me know how it is.
All right. Yeah.
But are there any games that you can think of where like people get to experience for the first time, and you're like, ooh, what do I do to be you again, just so I could experience that?
Yeah. So, I would say Shadow of the Colossus would be my pick.
Good pick.
And yeah, a lot of people got to experience that game for the first time thanks to it being remastered.
I never played the remaster. Did you?
I did not.
I've wanted to, but at the same time, with all these new games coming out, I'm just trying to catch up.
Yeah, I was trying to catch up too, so I didn't really have time to play it again. But I've played Shadow of the Colossus so many times, and I just love the sense of scale that game creates, where it's literally you as David and you going against a Goliath and just trying your best to hang on and climb to the top and finding that curse mark where you can stab him and everything, and it's just so crazy and fun.
And the kind of whole idea of the game was kind of groundbreaking at the time. When you read about it, you're like, what, this game doesn't have normal enemies? It's just a game of like 12 bosses? That's it? Really? That's it? And then when you actually start playing, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is great. Like, each boss was its own level. It was I loved it.
Yeah, I remember spending so much time trying to find like secret things that were like hidden throughout the game, trying to find like all the whitetail lizards to increase all my stamina. And I tried my best to make it to the top of that tower. I could never do that.
Yeah, you can find out what's on top of there with YouTube now. I betcha.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah. I think back in the day, I applied for what was it? It was something. It was like with the International Game Developers Association. It was like I think it might have been a chance to go to GDC. Like, this was back when I was in like high school, and going to GDC was just like, well, that would be so cool. But you had to put a submission, and one of the submissions was like, what game would you argue for video games being an art form? And I chose Shadow of the Colossus as the subject because I just thought it was such a unique game at the time, and it was gorgeous for the PS2.
That's very interesting because I wrote a paper on one of the games you're gonna talk about here soon. I won't spoil it yet, but when you say it, I'll let you know.
Which game is that? Just tell me, because I don't know if we'll get to all my games.
Assassin's Creed.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Like, the first one, shut the front door. Like, yeah, I want to be an assassin. Do you remember that reveal trailer when they were like, oh, Jade Raymond comes out like this is all in game, and then like Altier's just like sneaking through the crowd like a snake, and he's just like pushing people to the side. And then he busts out his knives from his wrist and just stabs people and just keeps walking. Like, I didn't see what happened. Did you see what happened? I didn't see. He just kind of fell. He tripped, and just like it was such a cool experience. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to get to Assassin's Creed. That's why I wanted to know which game it was. But yeah, man, that just when that first trailer came out, I think it was groundbreaking.
Yeah, it was so different that I had the motivation to write a college paper on Assassin's Creed and the history of the Templars and like just the ideas behind the game.
Which one was where you got to beat the shit out of the Pope? Was that 2 or 3?
I think.
I don't know.
It may have been Brotherhood.
I think it was Brotherhood because I just remember like, oh, they're not going to go there. They're not going to go there. And then it's like press X to punch the Pope, and you're like, oh, what? Okay. And then you just keep punching him, and then you find out the Pope's actually a fighter too, and you're like, damn, Pope, you're holding out on me.
Yeah.
Those games, man. Those games are crazy. I'm happy to see the guy that developed those two or created them. He moved on and he's making Ancestors. I can't think of his name. He's a French guy, but
Ancel, Michael Ancel.
Yeah,
Ancel.
Yeah. He's making Ancestors, the story of the humankind or whatever it is. And that looks cool too. That looks like a game and subject matter that you don't see very often.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it. But yeah, Assassin's Creed was cool too, and I would do anything. I would almost rather like be at that E3 reveal and then see the trailer for the first time again than actually play it for the first time, because I just lost my shit the first time I saw that trailer. Is there another game like where you would be like, oh, I would totally play that again? Totally.
So, I mentioned this earlier. In the hopes of that EA makes a remaster or a sequel, I picked Jade Empire. And I just had such a connection with that game. I just rented it because it looked interesting one night, and I got into it.
Wait, are we talking like Blockbuster rental? Like you went out and rented it from like a video store?
Yeah, this was back in the days when that was a lot more common.
When the Blockbusters were the only way to get movies? Or
yeah.
I guess you probably still get them in Netflix. Do you know Netflix still sends out DVDs in the mail?
No, I did not.
Yeah, they still do. Apparently you can still sign up for it. Who would have known? But anyway, Jade Empire.
But yeah, so like I had such a connection with it. It was the first game that I ever marathon gamed. I actually ended up playing it for like 16 hours straight.
Like, what did you not sleep?
No, what I did was, the moment I got up, I set up a TV and just like bunkered myself down and started playing it like nonstop. I only stopped to eat and go to the bathroom.
Ryan, that's not healthy, man.
I know. I was just so into that game, though.
All right, so full disclosure, I've never played Jade Empire ever.
Really?
Nope, never got around to it. And then by the time I got a 360 after I got the original Xbox, it was just like too late now.
You missed out, man.
Oh yeah, well, if they ever released like a remaster, I'll give it a shot. Would you think it would still hold up today? I mean, it's an older game, so like you think a lot of the design mechanics would still.
I imagine that they would probably need to change a few things, but I think for the most part it would hold up.
Gotcha. Well, I don't really have any more games. If you have any, oh no, The Last of Us. I could talk about The Last of Us. That was a good game. That was like a game you experienced for the first time, and you're like, I think when The Last of Us first got announced and we saw the trailers and we were like, oh, this could be cool, but like the kind of game they're trying to show is so different thematically from like Uncharted, which is what they're known for. Uncharted is almost like this Indiana Jones humor action type game.
It was such a deviation from what we've known Naughty Dog to make. Given that before then they've made Uncharted and Ratchet and Clank and Crash Bandicoot. So this was like just a huge departure from that. So it was just a big surprise.
And I think, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it. I think all my, concerns were addressed in the first, 20, 15 minutes of the game.
Gosh, do you remember how sad that beginning was?
Yeah, I remember. That's why I just got goosebumps. The game hits you, right in the gut from the beginning, and you're just like, okay, Naughty Dog, okay, all right. Some of these games are getting deep now, so...
Yeah.
And then, it was a game that was just able... I think it was just able to bring so many things together so well for the first... I wouldn't say the first time. I think they did it in Uncharted 2. They just did it to a different degree or a different approach in Uncharted. But all the voice acting, the animations, the setting, the story, it all coming together so seamlessly to create what is known as that game. It was just great. That's why I'm stoked for the second one.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like the second was just going to go in really screwed up places. I think it's going to take us to some really dark themes in Ellie's story. They haven't released anything about it. We don't know anything. We don't know if Joel's dead. Joel could have been killed, and this is her way to get revenge. We don't know.
Do you think that he's going to be like a ghost?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think the game might do callbacks. So it'll do flashbacks of you'll get to play Joel and you'll see what happened to Joel as the player controlling him.
I hope not. I want Joel to be in the game. Personally.
I don't know, man. There's something kind of intriguing to me about playing this ghost Joel and then this Ellie just being so messed up mentally from losing the really only, I guess you could say, almost father figure that she ever had, because she was born into that world. So
yeah.
So I'm excited. I don't know what to expect. I just know I'm probably gonna get a few trailers at E3 and just lose my shit even more over it, and then don't even get me started on Death Stranding. Now this episode is turning into an E3 episode, so we could talk about that real quick. The news. Did you see Norman Reedus came out and said he did an interview for, I think, something he was doing, Walking Dead, I think, and the interviewer asked him about Death Stranding, and he was like, oh man, it's crazy. It's not what you think it is. You guys have no idea. Hideo Kojima's a genius. I was like, damn it.
I did see something about that. I didn't get to see the story though.
Yeah. Basically nothing new. He didn't spill the beans on anything, but he just said it's not what you expect, which we already know coming from Kojima. He's the master of misdirection. He shows us one thing and it's totally something else.
Of course.
So
sounds exactly like him.
And then you got Norman Reedus calling him a genius because he's probably got this crazy. I just picture Hideo Kojima as the guy in his game design room when he's mapping out these stories. He's got a giant whiteboard with post-it notes and then lines drawn in every single direction, connecting the story on all one cohesive spider web of just that's what I picture in Kojima's office. Or maybe that's just in his brain. I don't know.
Wait, so you're saying that he's kind of like a madman?
Yeah, he's a madman that creates amazing games, because you can honestly say there's nothing out there quite like the Metal Gear series, and as far as the way he's told that story. I really don't think there is. I think he's very unique in his approach to how he writes characters and how he tells stories.
He is definitely unique.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yep. So, that's the end of this episode. We're going to cut it at an hour. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening. You can find me at Twitter at WriterofBrohan, RYDER BROHAN. Kind of like Riders of Rohan, but bros instead. Don't ask. I was immature when I made the Twitter handle. And then you can also find me on Instagram at JUSTJustBryce, BRYYCE. I should really get better handles that aren't so weirdly spelled. But you know what? I've already committed at this point.
It fits your personality.
There we go. Where can people find you, Ryan?
So I write about video games and technology on Inverse.com. Feel free to check out my articles. The name's Ryan McNeil. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ryan McNeil24. And you can also check out my YouTube channel at MC123. Or EMCEE123.
I was about to say, you see, your shit's easy. Like mine's all spelled weird. Again, if you like this podcast, please follow us on SoundCloud and Spotify and share it with your friends. That's it. Good night.
All right. See ya.